I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello everyone. Welcome back to V Squad TV. But like all relationships that grow in the spotlight, there are also times when the distance seems greater than the closeness. In the documentary, Break the Silence, there is a part where Jungkook is seen alone in the backstage hallway after a grueling concert. The camera captures his hunched figure, his breathing heavy, and his expression full of thought. Moments later, familiar footsteps are heard. Taehyung comes in without a word, just sitting next to him. There is no hug or sweet words, just presence. But in that silence, they rebuild their strength. It's moments like these that add depth to Taekook's story. It's not always dramatic or tearful, but it's precisely because their silence is louder than screams. In the entertainment world, where everything has to look grand and extraordinary, their closeness is most powerful in the simple moments, sharing earphones on the bus, sitting side by side in the middle of a concert, or leaning their heads together backstage without any dialogue. A few years ago, when BTS was in America on tour, a staff member who accidentally recorded their backstage interaction shared a story that had never been heard before. Jungkook had a hearing problem before a performance and was visibly frustrated. Taehyung, without hesitation, sat down on the floor with him, gently massaged his shoulders, and told him, "You don't have to be perfect. Just be you." Those simple words may sound ordinary to an outsider, but to someone who always feels the need to give their best, they are permission to breathe. During the pandemic, when many interactions were taking place virtually, fans noticed how Taehyung and Jungkook referred to each other even in their personal broadcasts. No big confessions, no romantic nicknames. But there was always a warm mention, genuine concern, and a sense of longing that radiated from the way they phrased their words. When Taehyung said, "I hope we're all healthy," especially her, fans knew exactly who he was referring to. In one leaked birthday letter that later spread among fan communities, Jungkook wrote to someone, "You're the reason I'm getting through this." Though names aren't mentioned, fans who've followed their relationship over the years can sense who the source of that strength is. The words feel too specific, too deep, to be simply addressed to anyone in general. When BTS announced they were going to focus on solo projects, there was a certain amount of anxiety among fans. Would the growing distance overshadow their closeness? Would Taekook fade into the hustle and bustle of individual pursuits? But time has proven otherwise. Even when they're rarely seen together, little touches still pop up. Whether in comments on social media, mentions in interviews, or hidden details in their solo songs. In Jungkook's solo track released last year, there's a line that left many fans speechless. "I search for light in the crowd, and only one voice can calm me down." The line may seem metaphorical, but in the context of their relationship, fans know that the voice in question has a very distinct identity. And when Taehyung released his melancholy ballad, Scenery, everyone knew who first heard it before it was even released to the public. Interestingly, it's not just fans who are beginning to recognize the depth of this connection. Some music reporters, who have followed BTS for years, have begun to write about Taekook not as a speculative couple, but as a symbol of a bond that endures despite everything around them. In one article, a music journalist wrote, "Taehyung and Jungkook are a reflection of a friendship that doesn't need to be proven, only felt." There's something very human about the way they protect each other. When rumors and pressure come from all directions, they don't defend themselves with public statements. Instead, they stay silent, walk side by side, and let time tell the difference. And perhaps that's where their greatest strength lies, in their quiet resilience. During a fan meeting in Busan, there was a moment when Jungkook suffered a minor injury on stage. The audience saw Taehyung rush over, grab Jungkook's arm, and lead him back without panic, but with determination. It wasn't just a sense of responsibility as a bandmate. It was instinct. When someone is so ingrained in our lives, our reactions become automatic. Taekook isn't an easy relationship to explain. There's no linear narrative or label that can capture their complexity. They're a colorful gray area where raw emotions mix with restraint. And that's why so many people relate to them. Because they reflect the dynamics of a real relationship. Sometimes confusing, but always honest. One of the most touching things about their story is how the two seem to mend each other's old wounds. Jungkook has said on multiple occasions that he learned to be more open and confident because of someone who never gave up on me. Taehyung, on the other hand, has said that he learned to embrace imperfection and be more patient because of someone who was always there even when the world was falling apart. Their togetherness wasn't built overnight. It was forged through thousands of hours of practice, long rides on tour buses, backstage tears, unexpected joys, and silences that only they understood. And when all of that comes together, what's formed isn't just a friendship. It's an emotional connection that defies logic. Taekook is a kind of silent poem that continues to write itself. They don't need a microphone to explain it. No external affirmation is needed, because their every move is a verse, every look is a pause, and every shared laugh is the perfect ending to a sentence. Even when they're not speaking, the world is content just to see them together in one frame. A relationship like this is rare, especially in a world where everything can be sold and packaged. But it's precisely because they don't sell their relationship that it feels more precious. They protect it, nurture it, and let it grow without the world's interference. And therein lies a beauty that can't be replicated. There's a famous line that goes, "The truth doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just sits quietly in the corner, waiting to be seen." And perhaps that's what Taekook has been doing all along. They've never forced a narrative, never demanded recognition. But their truth, whatever it is, has long spoken, even when the world is too busy looking elsewhere. Now, as BTS enters a new chapter in their lives, fans look forward to the future with a quiet sense of hope. Not because they want more viral moments from Taekook, but because they know that their relationship, whatever it is, will endure. Because some things don't need to be broadcasted to survive. Some things just need to be felt to know they're real. And in the growing silence, behind the ever larger stage and the ever noisier world, Taekook's story remains like a song that can only be heard by those who truly listen. Not because of the volume, but because of the meaning. Because in a world full of echoes, the purest sounds often come from the quietest places. That night in Seoul, at the last concert before the break, there was a brief moment that wasn't captured by the official cameras but was talked about by many fans in attendance. As the lights dimmed and the members prepared to leave the stage, Taehyung looked over at Jungkook, who was still standing facing the sea of army with teary eyes. Without a word, Taehyung reached out his hand. Jungkook took it, holding it tightly, as if it were the last anchor before everything changed. And in that hand were the gratitude, the hurt, the promises, and the trust they had built over a decade. After the concert, a photo was posted on social media, just the silhouettes of two people sitting on the edge of an empty stage, their backs to the camera, surrounded by dim lighting. Fans immediately recognized it as Taehyung and Jungkook. There was no long caption. Just one sentence from Taehyung: "See you in the same place, with the best versions of ourselves." The sentence was like a chapter closing, but not the end of the story. Instead, it was a promise that while their paths may have diverged, their hearts would still meet at the same point. Because in the end, Taekook's story is not about possession, but about connection. They never belonged to each other, but they always came back to each other in the form of attention, in the songs they wrote, in the quiet moments that only two hearts that grew together in the spotlight could understand. And for the fans watching from afar, their story is a reminder that in a world that is constantly changing, there are relationships that endure only because they choose not to let go.
Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a